I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times. It's Thursday, July the 2nd, going into a holiday weekend. Here's news today from Arkansas. Last week's U.S. Supreme Court decision on same-sex marriage still has aftershocks in Arkansas, perhaps more here than anywhere else. Both caucuses of the Republican Party in the legislature, both the House and the Senate, have unanimously signed statements saying they're going to do everything they can to pass laws if necessary to protect the rights of people in the name of religion to discriminate against gay people. Marriage is going to happen, I guess, but they say they'll pass more religious protection laws. They passed some the last session. They say they can even find a way to perhaps protect public officials who don't like it on the grounds of religion to perform duties that require them to, for example, marry people. Don't think they can do that, but the legislature has wasted money before in the names of passing laws that are unconstitutional. It wouldn't be the first time that they do it again here. The clerk in Randolph County has said she's waiting on word from God to decide whether or not she will ever issue a marriage license to a gay couple should any present themselves. Again, her options are simple. She can do her job, which she's sworn to do under the Constitution, or else she can quit. That may yet prompt a lawsuit. Not all the news is so bad. The ExxonMobil Corporation, interestingly, after years of resistance, is moving strongly in the direction of recognizing the need to promote diversity in the workforce and to protect people from discrimination. Good story in the New York Times about that today. The Episcopal Church, you may know this week, said that it will recognize gay marriage, joining a small group of churches that lean in that direction, despite the Arkansas legislatures believe that this is not a Christian thing to do. And I'd note that a longtime leader in church circles on equity for gay people, the Unitarian Universalist Church, has scheduled an open ceremony on Saturday, June 11th, of which between 10 and 2, they're married for free. Anybody wants to come in and avail themselves of ministers and the facilities to do so, which is a nice outreach and a nice counterpoint to those who are not extending the hand of Christian fellowship to gay people. Elsewhere, the state reported today that it finished its fiscal year, which ends June 30th, with $191 million surplus. They're going to need a lot of that money to pay for tax cuts approved by the legislature. Some of that big surplus comes from some one-time money they jiggered with the state insurance department's budget to free up $50 million early, so that money would be on hand to pay for tax cuts for rich people. Poor people, as you know, were left out. Interesting possible controversy arising in Little Rock related to that popular Confederate flag, or at least Confederate topic in the Civil War. There's a proposal underway to rename Confederate Boulevard, which now only runs for about 5 or 6 blocks and past the National Cemetery, to change it to Springer Boulevard, as it's known for the rest of its course southward out of the city. There's an interesting history about where Confederate comes from. Actually, the cemetery there was built originally for Union soldiers, and Confederate soldiers were moved there later, at a later time. It would be more proper to call that Union Boulevard, really. There's some support for this on the city board for changing the name, but I expect we'll hear a lot of noise about it before it's over. This raises the question of whether they ought to finish the job of renaming High Street to Martin Luther King Drive, as they did some years ago. There, too, they left out a few blocks, the 3 blocks in front of the state capitol. If we're to have a Lee holiday, why not have it on a day when Martin Luther King Drive runs in front of the state capitol? Maybe that would balance those forces somewhat. Here's some other quick headlines from around the state. In Texas this morning, they arrested 2 men who were suspected of shooting at a DEA agent in Little Rock early this morning. He was slightly wounded. A forgery convict who was serving 15 years at a Pine Bluff units on work release at a concrete company in Pine Bluff stole $190 from the cash register, hopped in a company pickup truck, and drove off. They're looking for him. Benton, the city of Benton, announced today that it has a new mascot, sort of a big cartoon character, looks a little like Dilbert, named Ben. How much that costs, don't yet know, but they think this will help them with economic development. Another effort at getting an amendment to allow legalization of marijuana growth, possession, and sales in Arkansas has failed to get approval from the Attorney General's office. They undoubtedly will try again. And Nate Bell, the conservative legislator, once Republican, who left the party in a fit of unhappiness over some of their policies, is still firing at them from the outside. Interestingly, he notes that the party is considering a rule that will allow the party chairman, who's a paid official, currently Doyle Webb, to serve 12 years instead of just 8. Isn't it funny how when people get in power, these ideas of term limits don't seem like such a good idea? And finally, I donned, in case you wondered, this colorful shirt to signal the beginning of a long holiday weekend. I saw Irma Thomas, my favorite singer in the world, wearing a blouse made out of this fabric at the Jazz and Heritage Festival in New Orleans. Told my wife about it. She found a shirt for me. It turns out it's a Jazz Fest shirt, complete with New Orleans streetcars and little buttons made out of the tokens they used to use to ride the buses in New Orleans. I'm happy for to be able to signify New Orleans today, one of my favorite cities, and thank my wife. And I'm Max Brantley, and I'll be back next week.